I'm going to do the, I'm not even going to do it justice. Let's be honest. Like, if you're not reading the book, there's nothing that I'm going to tell you that this guy, you have to be reading it. Because I mean, usually when you read a book, like chapters are like maybe 12, 13 pages, 15 pages. His chapters are like 30 plus pages every chapter. So I was sitting here thinking, how am I going to try to give little bits and pieces, some nuggets in this book, when we should just be reading it, right? And so yeah, honestly, if you're not reading the books of the month, you got to be reading them, like because we're getting in here on Mondays, right? And we're trying to help you, right, with nuggets from the books that we're all reading, right? And it just honestly doesn't, it just doesn't do it justice. You've got to get in there and you've got to highlight, you've got to take notes, and and it's going to speak to you differently than it speaks to me, right? It just is. And so great book. And so the premise is get results, improve your relationship, enhance self-esteem. So if you're struggling with any of those, you should do that. Here's for me, the very first thing that I wrote down in my notes, because I'm a big note guy when I'm trying to teach people, is I complain a lot. I complain a lot. Like, I complain a lot. And so much so that I was talking to some friends of ours this weekend about the book. And I don't normally talk to people about the book that I'm reading, outside of, our organization. And so I know that it was hitting me, right? And then talking to my wife yesterday as we're, walking through Disneyland and California Adventure, spending some time together yesterday, about like how much we both complain, like all the time. And it's just little things. It's like social interaction is all it is. But you start picking up on it, right? I mean, we're walking through, and obviously Disneyland's crowded. Everyone knows it's crowded, California Adventure is crowded, right? But we walk through there and don't expect anybody to walk in front of us, and every time somebody walks in front of you or that makes you stop, you want to complain about, geez, like I'm right here. So I started yesterday saying, have a nice day, have a nice day. Like, actually changing the way that I thought about, complaining, because it's the little things, right, that we complain about. And so here's the deal. So in chapter 1 here, he's talking about venting or complaining is just a quest for emotional validation. Just a quest for, you feel like you've been wronged, you feel like, you need to be validated for the way that you feel about everything. You want to be heard, whatever that is, right? And so it's just the quest for emotional validation. And listen, I'm going to say some things here today that may offend you, but they're offensive to me. Like, I'm offending myself because I just realized that I just need to stop like complaining about like stupid stuff, right? Like the little things, like my life is really great, and perspective, and the way that I complain about. I'll bet you I complain 100 times a day over stupid stuff. I complained this morning when I got out of bed, and I told Terry, I said, well, there goes Monday. I've already ruined Monday with complaining. But listen, and I'm not saying that there are not times, and these are just my notes of things that I feel. I'm not saying that there aren't times when we, want to complain or we want to vent, but you have to do it the right way, and you have to do it to the right people. Okay. And so he talks about a safety manual for incident-free complaining. Okay. And so here, and this is going to challenge both the complainer and the complainee. Okay. At least I want it to. Is the person we're targeting generally supportive and understanding? If you're complaining, is the person that you're going to complain to, are they generally supportive and understanding? So that tells me two things. You need to be talking to the right people, right? Like in this business, you should be talking to your upline, right? About the way that you're feeling, not sideways, and definitely not downward, right? Because the reality of it is that you should be talking to the people, right, that you would trade places with, right? Period. Not the people that are in. If you're complaining to the person that is side by side to you about the way you're feeling, all you're going to do is drag each other into the ditch. Okay. And you can just lay there and bleed to death. It's up to you. Okay. That's the truth, right? So then the leader part of this, right? The person that has people coming to them complain, I would challenge you, and because I'm challenged, right? That we find a way to be supportive, right? That we find a way to be generally supportive and understanding in the way that someone's feeling. Because I think sometimes as leaders, people come to us, right? And it's in their nature just to be complainers, right? Or they're frustrated with stuff, and we don't treat them properly as that and try to help them grow. We shove them off as just being Karens, right? The Karens of the world, right? And we don't want to deal with that. So I think as leaders, we have to be better too. And then number two is the person in the right state of mind to be supportive and understanding. So the person that you're going to, where are they today, right? If I know that my upline, Jeff is having a super busy day, right? And I know that he's super busy, or whoever I'm going to, right? Jeff being my upline, I might save something to talk with him tomorrow, right? So that he's in the right state of mind, right? So that he's not so busy that we can't talk about my issue, my problem, right? In the right manner. So again, making sure that you're supportive, making sure that you're understanding. And then number three, can they relate? Have they been where you've been? Right? So I'm probably not going to, talk about the frustrations of that I have sometimes about building, right, and finding the right people for an organization that I'm trying to build, right. I'm probably not going to talk to my downline about that. They haven't been where I've been. I'm going to go to Jeff and Joe, right? Or I'm going to go to Cook. I'm going to go to my upline, or Mark, right? I'm going to go upward and talk about that. So can they relate? They have to be able to put themselves in your shoes, right? So make sure that you're going to the right people when it comes to that type of complaining. And then, I added a fourth one to this just because it's important. Can they help or do anything about it, right? If you're going to complain, are you complaining just for the simple sake of complaining, or can that person that you're going to actually do something about it? Or should you just, maybe run into a wall? Like, I don't know, right? But can they actually do something, right? So then he goes into the book, which is so normal. This is crazy stuff. Like, complaining is a normal social means of communication. Like, we get together and we just complain. Like, have you ever noticed, like, in social gatherings, right, how much complaining is going on? And this is going to mess you up. If you're reading the book, or if you're actually taking notes and listening to this call, you're now, for the next couple of weeks, if you're really paying attention, you're going to be in social circles and you're going to be like, dude, what in the world? Like, everyone complains. I listened to it all day yesterday in Disneyland. People in line complaining about this and complaining and complaining. And honestly, because I'm challenging myself right now to not be a complainer, like, it was unbelievable. And I was like, that's what I sound like. That's what I sound like. I sound like that person, And so my wife and I, we caught ourselves numerous times yesterday. It's just normal. So it's used to start conversations, right? He actually goes into the book and says, like, on a first date or something, two people come together and they complain about their ex. That's how they start their conversation, right? So it's used to start a conversation. In dating, it's used to fit in, right? To gossip, right? So he uses an example in the book where this guy was in an interview process, and he's going through, and there was like three higher ups. He was invited to something. There was three higher ups that were wine tasting, and they all hated the wine, and he tasted it. He's like, I liked it, but he said, I hated it, right? Because to fit in, right? To try to make himself fit in. And so we do those things. We'd rather complain and be a part of the group, right, than be positive. So it's used to evaluate or compare ourselves as better than someone else. Well, I'm not as bad as them, right? Well, they do this, this, and this, and I don't do that, so I'm better, right? And then it's used to seek an explanation. He uses the example of a mom that walks by and says, how come I'm the only one that cleans up around here, right? Just complaining rather than saying, hey, help me clean up here, So we're just complaining all the time. And so it's just become normal and acceptable. And I hope that when you get off this call today, or when you're reading this book, that it is a huge challenge to you, because it is for me, because I can find the smallest things to complain about. Reverend Will, here's the greatest part, and this is my biggest takeaway from this week, is Reverend Will Bowen, author of A Complaint-Free World, right? I think that's the next book that I'm going to read. He gives a 21-day challenge, right? 21-day challenge. He has, you can actually go to a website, you can get a little purple bracelet that they have, and you wear it on your right wrist or left wrist, whichever way you want to start, right? And he challenges people to not complain for 21 days. He was challenging his congregation. It took him 3 months to do that, because every time you complain, you take the bracelet off and you put it on the other arm, right? And you start over. But it took this guy 3 months to actually, get a 21-day consecutive streak of not complaining, right? It's going to take me like 7 months. I got to start over today. But the other part about this too is, so I would challenge you to take on that challenge, right? And his whole premise is that he believes that the world would be happier, healthier, perspectives would be different if we just stopped complaining and we challenged ourselves to not complain about stupid stuff. I mean, honestly, like, how many of you complained today already? I mean, yeah, like we got to figure this thing out, right? We'll be happier. I promise you that. We complain so much that corporations spend millions of dollars, billions probably, right? To listen to our complaints about their products, their customer service. Do you know that that's where the 800 line started? Like, it started as a complaint. They started, let's get a phone number, a 1-800 number, right? So people can call in and complain about our products and our customer service and whatever. And they spend billions of dollars every year to listen to us whine and complain about stuff that we just can't change. So, this is just the point to this morning, and then I'll stop. We've made complaining acceptable. We complain to the wrong people. We complain too much. We complain ineffectively. And then on things that that don't get us anywhere ever. They're just simply so that we can whine and cry and complain. I'm guilty, man. I'm 100% guilty. But we're complaining about things that we expect it to get us somewhere, and it just simply doesn't. So again, that's why we came up with, over the last couple of years, Karens, like we say, well, there's a Karen, right? You see videos all the time, right? So now people that are probably the worst complainers are calling people that complain Karens. So, and at the beginning of the book, he tells a story. They were doing, he rented this apartment. They were doing construction. He wanted, and it was so loud and it was going to last longer. They were putting an underground parking garage in there. You got to read the book to really get the gist of it. But the reality of it was, all these people in his building were writing letters to the owners to try to get a discount on their rent, because they were just complaining. And he finally got to a place where he wrote a letter, and none of the other people got anything from it. Nothing. No, not even responses. And not even responses. And then he writes a letter, and they contact him, and they give him like all of these things, like discounted off his rent and and all these stuff, and extended his rental contract and all this. And he was like, why? And he's like, because your letter was awesome and we appreciated it. He complained the right way. So that's my last challenge to you today, is if you got some complaints, come to your upline, come to the people in your life, whatever, right? And speak to them the right way. Sugar over vinegar, right? And look for a solution rather than just be a complainer.
It's so good, buddy. I was going through airports and stuff yesterday, and we had a flight canceled. And so obviously it gave us an opportunity to complain, right? And but our challenge, is we read books like this, and it's like, well, what good is complaining going to do at that point, right? And really, it's not. There's no intrinsic value of us just continuing. Actually, it's just going to add to misery, right? So I remember when we approached the guy at the airport and he had the name tag on, I'm like, hey, something that I love to add value to people's life when I meet them. Read his name tag, called him by his first name. And I said, hey man, you guys haven't, how are you guys today? And just talk to him normal. We knew also our bag was 7 pounds overweight. Like we knew it was, you know what I mean? It was 7 pounds over the weight, but we were like, forget it. We're going to pay the fee, right? No worries at all. Like, not going to complain about it. Put it on the scale. Sure enough, it's like 56.8 pounds. And if you fly a lot, you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And it was the outdoor counter. And I always tip the outdoor counter guy because I just tip him because I just always do. So I tip him. Boom. Dude did not charge us for that, right? It's how we approached our situation. Didn't, which was probably a $50 or $100 charge. He didn't even charge us for it because I believe in my heart that he liked how pleasant we were to him, even dealing with all the things we were dealing with. And then we went about our day and we just, we all have those challenges. Like I love doing this, Brian, to make people smile because, how many people at a gas station are usually dealing with some negative Nancy's, people that are complaining 24/7. So I love to be the opposite. I love calling them by their first name. You know how many people light up when you call them by their first name?
I do it all the time. Every time I read their name tag, every time. I don't care where we're at. I'll say, hey, thank you, Bill. Hey, thank you, so-and-so. Same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I appreciate you. You would just be so shocked if you just did that in your life. Thank you. I appreciate you. If you would just say that to people regularly and replace complaints with that, you'll see things start to it's like the universe sort of starts to gravitate good things to you.
It does.
You know what I mean? So
and I think, and again, just to hit, I think that if you will take this book, right, and change your mindset and really pay attention to the words that are coming out of your mouth, my mouth, right, you'll realize you complain a lot more than what you realize. And number two, when you decide to change and really I'm just going to be positive, my perspective is going to be different. You'll notice the world around you just, oh my gosh, Terry and I over this weekend have noticed so much complaining over crazy stuff. And you just kind of go, wow, must be hard, right? Must be hard to be that person, right? And we've been that. So we're just not going to do that anymore.
I love it, man. And it's, what I love about it, like you said, it's the awareness. This book is challenging us to be aware of our own complaining. It challenges me to be a higher level person because dude, some of this that I'm saying something about does no good. So why am I doing it? Just adding to misery. Move forward, right? And,
zero good, right? And I've been in the airports when flights were delayed and this and that. And Jordan and Jared and I and Terry, we've actually joked about it because they've been delayed a lot, right? And they would literally tell me, Brian would be freaking out right now. So they know that I'm that guy, right? And I mean, we've known them for a little over a year, and they know that. They already know that about me, that I'm the guy that flight's delayed or canceled, and I'm freaking out like, oh my gosh, right? I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be known as that guy. I just want to be like, okay, well, it is what it is. Those two were so delayed this last year. They were laying on one of the luggage things, right? Trying to catch a nap, and they just embraced it, right? So, anyways, you just got to embrace the struggle, man. Put a smile on our face. Be good to people.
I love it, buddy. I love it. Well, we're going to go through a little stuff, and I want to leave you unmuted because I definitely want the value you add to any of this right here. But also, Joe, you out there, buddy?
Yes, sir.
So one thing I do each week, and so you guys, just so you know, I'll text the leadership team over the weekend typically, and I'll be like, hey, is there any topics you guys need for your teams or you personally need? And certainly I'll get feedback from leadership, and I always really appreciate that. But I'll just say this for some of you guys that are like, hey, like some more training on this in the Monday Zoom call, let your leader know, let your agency owner, your key leader know, and just know we're going to address it. We want to help you guys. We want to bring value to you each and every weekend, not here or each and every week. And the challenge is, though, be willing to take notes and apply it to your business without your own personal opinion towards it, right? Like, because if you are already thinking the way some of us already think, well, guess what? Your business would be already more gravitating towards the more positive direction, right? So there's a good challenge for you there. But just know that's something we do, and just know that we're always want to bring the most value to you guys. So a couple of things, and Joe and Brian, we'll sort of roundtable this a little bit, but I do think this will add value to people. So one of our leaders said, all right, here we go. Sorry, bring it up here. All right, building a strong why and establishing a role and purpose in the home. Like, like what's some ways that we can do that more effectively, right? Building a strong why and establishing a role and purpose. Well, first, and here's a challenge, because we all want to go in and answer that question, right? Like us as producers, like our first response, our knee-jerk response is, oh man, I got to dig in with this producer and I got to really focus on the why, and I really got to hammer on the role and person. And that is great. I want you to know that is great. That's great training. Love where your heart is. First, let's start with one thing. We do know we are in a system, right? This is a challenge. So Joe and Brian, you can even challenge me on this too. This is what I love. Like, it's going to be an open forum, so they may kick my tail on this, right? The first thing that I got to ask, this first thing I got to ask, and leaders pay attention to this, but also anybody in this business pay attention to this. I got to ask, how many appointments did you sit with this week? I have to ask that, because as a good leader, I have to make sure first, what's our numbers? And here's one thing that we always start out with. In this case, in Brandon 101, if they were mentoring you, first we start with the numbers, because we got to have that also to affect the overall business model, right? Our business model, and I want to be clear because it can be fuzzy sometimes, referring back to the old days when we sit person to person. The old days was 12 to 15 appointments a week, sitting kneecap to kneecap. New way, Zoom session. We also knew there's some sacrifice for doing Zoom over in-home, because there's less commitment, I guess you would say, right? Because it's a little bit less thing, because it's just a Zoom session. It's not an in-person. So the first thing is we have to remember this number. It's 15 Zoom session appointments a week that you have to sit with, right, to get your number. And I'm going to really show you how this works mathematically in a second. So as we simmer on the why and role and purpose, know that is important. It's not near as important as making sure that first number is correct, because if that number is not correct, the other will never matter, because it starts there. So it starts with the number of people you sit in front of, because I promise you, the more you sit in front of, the more likely you are to help people, right? So it all starts out helping people. So first number, if I'm going with anybody, it's 15 appointments a week, right? Because here's the key. Usually the first 11 or 12 appointments is your cost of business. That's what it is. It's your cost of business. It's something Brandon and Casey teach on, something I've understood. Keep in mind, for some of you that don't see me in the field now, but for 10 years I was in the field. I had to make money at this. I couldn't have, because I would have been living in a van down by the river in my personal production career if I did not, because that's how I paid for my business. So you have to understand that you got to sit with 15 people a week. And here's manifest itself. So I asked an agent and they said, well, I'm averaging 12 sits a week, right? And 12 sits a week over, say a 2-week period, but let's say 12 sits a week over 6 weeks. Like, some of you may think, oh, well, that's not bad. It's averaging 12 people a week, or the system says 15. Well, here's the key. In 6 weeks, just in 6-week average, that's 3 people a week that they're not sitting in front of, which is 18, which for a decent, by the numbers type deal, right? We know the numbers, that's probably an extra 4 to 6 applications that person's missing out on over that time period. Those 4 to 6 applications, if we take the average app, would come out to about 5,000 APV. Based on a starting contract, that missing 3 appointments a week extrapolated out over 6 weeks is that person's lead bill paid for. And everything else they wrote would be profit, right? So Joe or Brian, before I comment on anything else, anything you guys want to add to that part?
I love that, right? The missing apps, right? That's a really great way to look at it, because when we sit with a new agent and they're explaining, hey, you know what, I need to get to this income, or I'm able to sit with X amount of people. It's almost anyone, right? Struggling is not sitting with the right amount. And we always talk about, well, hey, you got to hear, but Chris, I've actually, that's a great way to put it, right? Is, well, you didn't get to sit with these because I always teach an agent, hey, you have to push. If you're full-time, you have to sit, if you're full-time, you have to sit with your 15. Like, you have to fight, scratch, do whatever it takes to get there, right? And, a lot of times we come up short. But saying it that way, it's just a really big eye opener, right? They didn't get to sit with those other 3 appointments a week, and that's 4 or 5 applications in a 6-week period that they're missing, right? That's $2,000 or $3,000 in profit, right? That's a great way of seeing it. So I hope everyone caught that, right? It's not about, hey, I didn't get to the appointments that I should have gotten to for the week, right? Hey, I missed those opportunities, right? Like, those are missing in my book of business. It's like if I were a restaurant, right? I'm referencing a restaurant. It's like if I open, my hours are from 7 to 10 p.m. and I close every day, right, at 7 p.m. So I'm missing 3 hours of business every single day. Like, there's my profit. I like that.
Yeah, it's knowing that something that, if you really want to take your game to a profitability another level, just knowing that usually appointments 1 through 12 or 1 through 11 are typically cost of business, and really just getting that number down. If you're full-time, keep in mind, I'm speaking to the full-time. If you're part-time, the key number is 8 appointments a week. Key appointments, 8 appointments a week that you sit with, right? And so in appointments 13, 14, 15, remember, that's all pure profit at that point. That's what you got to realize, because your business is cost and everything's now going. So those applications you average there are a lot of times, for a lot of producers, that extra $1,000 to $3,000 a week in income that they may feel they need to be getting. And it doesn't look like a big deal. Now, 6 weeks, it was 18 appointments. In 50 weeks, say you took 2 weeks vacation, 50 weeks, you're missing 150 appointments, which is 60 applications, which is over 60,000 in premium, which is 30 or 40 grand in income, which would pay for your lead bill for the entire year. That's so key. You know what I mean? So it's just like, so I just say that. And hey, big producers, they'll overanalyze it because they're good enough on 10 appointments a week to write 8 applications. And it's like, they're the ones that miss out on some of the most profit because they're good enough to do it in 10, and they cheat their own business. I know, because guess what? This is me. I'm the poster child of doing this in my past. Does that make sense? I want you to know. And guess what? I never got to where I wanted to get to business-wise until I said, no, non-negotiable. I need to do 15, because that allowed me to hire. Anybody see Miss Tina? Do you think it's a value to my business? See, those extra 3 appointments allowed me to hire Miss Tina. You know what I mean? Or I could shortchange my business and not get there. Big producers, like, because they're so good, they can get away with not doing it. And guess what? They're the ones that sometimes hurt the most, because they wonder why they're frustrated. And it's like they're missing that extra income to pour back in their business, which, Joe, we did an exercise over at the cabin. If you hired a Tina, how many hours a week would that save you? Do you remember what?
20 to 30 hours.
Yeah, 20 to 30 hours a week was the average response. And I agree with that. Right?
Yep.
And it's like, man, how much freer could you be in your business if you got those 3 more appointments and were able to reinvest that back into a Miss Tina, which frees you another 20, 30. What does that free you up to do? 1 of 2 things: interview more people or run more appointments, which is, right, the extreme high dollar stuff in this business. So,
what's crazy too, Chris, is that we come here, right? And we're business owners, right? I mean, you're in business for yourself here, right? This is for you. But we'll come from other, W-2 jobs or wherever, right? And they always have expectations and quotas, right? And we will gladly do that and fill that person's expectations and quotas that they want from us. But then we come here and we won't do it for ourselves. Like,
and
why?
make them rich.
Yeah. Like, why? Like, why won't you do that for yourself? Why won't you figure out how to do that for yourself? You'll do it for somebody else, right? To support their dreams, and they're on 6 weeks vacation every year, right? But you won't do it for yourself. Why won't you do it for yourself? Like, I don't understand that, right? So, and really, honestly, 15 appointments is great, but I know for even me, like when I've set 15 appointments, you know, I've been no-showed 8, 9 times. So you might want to book 20.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, right? So I don't do it for yourself, right? We come here, please do it for yourself. It's not that much more work. It's just really not. We're so afraid of 3 or 4 more hours of extra dialing. 3 or 4 hours, that's nothing. I know that I probably watch 3 or 4 more hours of TV. That is mindless activity, right? So yeah, do it for yourself.
Yeah. And here's a key ingredient. Remember this, and I think this is missing on some people's radar. The key thing that I'm saying here, and Joe or Brian, you comment on this, is remember, we're not saying 15 appointments. Are we, Joe? What are we saying?
Sit with.
Sits. That means people that showed up on the other end. And if they didn't, go to the fridge, get a ham sandwich, come back and get it back on the phone. And guess what?
My favorite. It's my favorite trick, isn't it?
Another appointment, literally. Like, that's all you got to do to replace that appointment is just do that, right? Go get you a ham sandwich, have fun, get a Coke, you know what I mean? And
well, you were planning on sitting there for an hour anyways. You might as well put 35 more dials in, right? And book 2 or 3 appointments.
Well, you know, the sad part is, and the reality is, and the reason I'm a little bit of a tough cookie on this part, because I'm 2 hours away from my home when I was running appointments back in the day. In the parking lot, and the nearest gas station when I got no-showed was my home for the next 2 hours because I had to make up for that appointment. See, I had no choice. The key is now we have choices, and those choices wear us out because we may choose to go mow the lawn. We may choose to go pick up the kids, but if we were at work, we couldn't do any of those things.
Yeah.
But our own freedom and our own choices sometimes sabotages ourselves because we allow ourselves then to make different choices, not in congruence with what we say we want, right? You know what I mean? It's the freedom that can sometimes get us in trouble too, right?
Oh, yeah.
And Chris, on that, I was just literally all this week talking to a whole bunch of new agents about that, right? Because I think it's something that was lost in the transition to going to Zoom. We were taught when I started, right? Because we had to drive to people's homes, and we would drive 4 to 5 hours, right, Elijah, across state lines. We were taught you do not leave your house tomorrow if you don't have a minimum of 4 appointments back to back in that area. And I think that's been lost a little bit, right? Because if I book 2 appointments and they don't show up, it's fine. I'm still at home, right? It was not fine for us because I had to drive to Phoenix, right? 4 hours and go down to Gilbert or right Peoria and drive back and forth to all these cities. And I had to have four appointments. If I ran the risk of driving 4 hours to run 2 appointments and both of them not showing up, right? Then the next thing was, okay, so I got my 4 appointments in the area that I wanted, a minimum, right? Ideally, you wanted to have the full day, 6 appointments to 7, right? Every single day, because you had to leave your house, right? So it was so important for us to have those appointments. Let me tell you, we wouldn't go to sleep, right? Or we wouldn't call it a day at 5, 6, or 7 p.m. if you didn't have your 4 or 5 appointments. Right. If I only had 2, I'm like, I'm going to die. I have to, or I'm going to wake up early. And before I leave, I'm going to book another 2 to make sure before I head out to the next town that I had my 4 or 6 appointments. Right. But then here's the other thing. Right. And you just hit on it, Chris, really well. I was joking with my new agents was I got really good at finding where I can get free Wi-Fi. Right. So if you park right in front of Starbucks,
right,
I get free Wi-Fi with my laptop and I don't got to go inside. Right. So I can make dials, right? Because realize people, I would book a 10 and a 12 on a Monday, and then I'd have a 3 or 4 in the evening, right? And then a 7. What did I do for these 3 hours, right? We lived on the road, Chris, right? Like you literally hit it on the nail right there, right? Like what did we do? We dialed. We had a stack of leads and we were in our car, right? Or I'd go find a corner in Chili's and I'd get a $5 meal and I'd start dialing and booking more appointments because I had to, right? Because if not, what we were doing, we're just sitting in our car, right? And just take that opportunity, guys. Here, right, we take advantage of it because we just got no-showed, but still have that same mentality, right? Like you have to book. Something that changed the game with Jeffrey and I or the year before. So many years are passing now, Chris.
I know, right, buddy? That's crazy.
Was we talked about close ratio, and we were right trying to balance building and running appointments, Chris, and you hit the nail, and you really explained it to us well too, right? Was, hey, if you get no-showed, just make it a rule of thumb, you book 2 more. Like just make that happen, and it will change your business. For every no-show that you get on, right? You get on there and they don't show up, they don't answer the phone, whatever it may be, or they text you back and they answered and said, hey, cancel this appointment. It's okay, right? Don't complain about it, right, Brian? How
Do
are you
something about it. Don't complain about it. Be about it.
Book 2 more appointments. Yep. Man, we literally saw our APV increase, I mean, easily like $3,000 or $4,000 a week when we made that decision, when we went virtual. If you get no-showed, just make it an automatic. Oh, okay, I got no-showed now. The next thing to do, the next step is book 2 appointments. It will change your game.
That's right, buddy. I love it. No, and and something else here, and as I'm going, my check with my new agent is then I'm like, well, did you resolve all your leads? Meaning I just asked them that question because I have to, because I'm looking at them to be a good, profitable business. Because obviously if they have run a good, profitable business, they're not leaving the business. So then you ask yourself, if you're an agent, you say, hey, did I resolve all my leads? And if I didn't resolve all my leads and say I'm stuck, then the first thing you got to do is resolve your leads, because that literally is money in the bank for you and coverage for those families that you were assigned to, that you said you would take and take care of, right? Yes or a no is okay. Like, notice I don't treat a no any different than I do a yes. It's just, did I get a proper no and then I get a proper yes? It's all one and the same. Now, do I want to help everybody? Absolutely. We're all humans here. I didn't want to get a no, but if I get a no, it's not life altering. I want to do the best job I can do for the family. I want to ask them the right questions. I want to ask them what their main concern was. And if I do that and I do it and I'm still doing it in a likable manner, more often than not, they will choose to do business with me. So I would just say, are you asking the right questions? That's number one. Are you likable? Meaning your presence on the screen. How is it, right? Are you, well, I don't know, Terry, Brian, this right here. It's a 20-year product through Mutual of Omaha. See, you're smiling. Are you smiling? Like awareness. Like, I promise you, I was the poster child of one time of not smiling. Number one, I had crooked teeth. Thank God I had money to fix that. So I was more self-conscious than anything else. But I promise you, that awareness that I need to smile more, that was an awareness that I had to bring to my own self, right? And guess what? People then, the universe started responding to me differently. I wasn't hokey, wasn't cheesy with it, but I wanted to smile back to people, because if I don't, guess what? I'm bringing a mood and an attitude into an appointment that doesn't make me likable. And if I'm not likable, they're probably going to choose not to do business with me. Is that a fair assessment? Anything you guys got on that?
No, that was good.
No, that's good. Yeah, smile, man. Be happy.
Yeah.
You should be smiling anyways. They showed up.
And this next part is deep, but it really goes into what me and Joe are going to talk about, but how I want your perspective on it too is this right here. Well, I do want to add one more part on the why and the role and purpose. It's like, if I'm dealing with you, let's say, Brian, I'm dealing with you. Here's the first thing, one of the things that I'm going to do that helps me help people, right? This is what I'm going to do. I'll say, Brian, so you and Terry, you guys got that mortgage. It's 30 years and, what's your monthly mortgage payment? And then if something, have you guys thought of this, Brian, if something happens to both of you at the same time, who do you want to inherit the home? Obviously, we don't want it to go to the bank. Who would you want it to go to if something happens to both of you at the same time? Who would it go to?
Yeah, it would go to my wife. Yeah.
Okay. No, if something happened to you and Terry at the same time, because me and my wife, kids. And watch this, I'm going to use myself as an example. And I did this, and I did it in a positive way. So Brian, so the way I have it set up for my family is, if something happens to me and my wife, Lauren, we've got it set up going to Reese and Noah. They're my boys. They're 9 and 12. We've got it set up going into trust fund until they turn the age of 18. We just don't want the bank getting it. We want them to have the option, or the family have an option to sell it so they can keep the extra money. We don't want Bank of America getting it.
Yep.
Is that sort of what you guys are thinking, Terry, you and Brian? Okay.
Yep.
So what's the name of your 4 kids?
Josh, John, Joe, Jordan.
Josh, John,
Jordan,
Joe,
like the basketball player.
Jordan. Perfect. Nice. So you named him after Jordan?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, the reason, hey, and this is important, folks, because if you're wanting to know why, role, and purpose, remember, I just did the most key thing. Him and his wife, Terry, they don't give a hoot about the house, really. They just want to make sure Josh, John, Joe, and Jordan are taken care of. And as long as I do that, right, and I make sure Josh, John, Joe, and Jordan are taken care of, I'm likable, guess what?
Yep.
They're going to do business with me. Brian's going to do business with me as long as he knows I've taken care of Terry first. And then if something happens to him and Terry, and I've deepened a commitment and an emotionality by, I don't say they're kids. You will not hear me in the rest of the presentation refer to his kids. I will say what this will do when you pass away, Brian, doesn't matter if it's 2 weeks from now or 20 years from now, this is going to give first Terry this tax-free benefit of $150,000, right? So it's going to go directly to her. If something happens to both of you at the same time, we've got it set up to go directly, split equally. And you tell me if this is wrong. I got Josh, John, Joe, and Jordan taking care of those 4. Is that the way you want it?
Yep.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions. You know what I mean? But if we set that up, there's an emotional reaction happening in his head right there. It's like, man, yeah, I want them taken care of. I was like, yeah, I didn't want to take care of the bank either. I wanted to make sure Reese and Noah were taken care of, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like, and if we do that, folks, and we're humans and we run appointments that way, and I think it's tough for people that don't have kids. I think that can be tough for people that don't have kids, because the deep understanding of being a father to Reese and Noah is like, I'm pretty sure there's not much in this world I wouldn't do to make sure those boys are taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think 100%, right? I mean, empathy and care for people, right, will help you be very, very successful here. And genuine empathy and care, not
genuine,
not some, I'm just going to try to be empathetic and care about you so that I can get a sale, because people see through that BS, man. Like, seriously. So you have to genuinely be human. That's really what it is. It's humanity at its best. And I've just started using that over the last 6 months about just being human, right? Humanity, right? Humanity matters, right? And so really genuinely caring about people. I just had an appointment on Saturday, same thing, couple 64, and 69. And I said the same thing. Hey, this is going to take care of you, Valerie. This is going to take care of you, Bruce. And then this is going to take care of, and I have their kids' names. I don't remember them now, but I did at the time, right? And who is this going to if you both happen to pass at the same time, right? Yeah. And so, Michael and Elizabeth. Yep. So, yeah, and caring about them, right, and referring to them as people, right, and not just contingent beneficiaries, right, or kids.
Joe, we have just set this up and teed it up for the next part, because what we did, we built everything right there. Here's what me and Joe are going to cover, but we even want Brian to challenge us on this, because Brian, you can challenge us on it, and you can give us anything feedback on this, buddy. But here's what's going to do it now. Here's the key. When you have a bigger why, when you're doing things at a different level, and there's a book I read many years ago. It's called The Magic of Thinking Big. All those years, me running appointments, people are like, I've had people come up to me, Hal, and be like, dude, you're crazy. You spent 10 years, previous business, you came here. Why did you not quit? Why did you never give up? And it's like, because I never saw myself just being a producer. I saw myself building a business, and it gave me a bigger why and purpose of my own, which helped me find other people's why and purpose on things they cared about, right? And like you said, it helped me be more genuine, meaning if I'm broke, do you think I can be very genuine with anybody?
No, you're desperate.
I'm desperate. But here's the thing, if I'm not, like if I'm running appointments, right? If I'm doing it, if I'm running appointments the correct way, and I'm doing this next thing, I'm doing 10 plus interviews a week, right, Joe? Guess what? My vision for what I'm doing in this business is way bigger. And with a bigger vision, right, I'm not going to perish because I'm not complaining about the one appointment that no showed me or anything like that, because that's not even my vision. That's just something I do to add value to people. Does that make sense?
Part of
And
the
my
process.
Yeah, it's a process. And then think about it this, if I talk to 10 people a week about this business and I interview them about, they tell me, I ask them a question, I say, hey, what are you looking for? And then I draw a pathway of how they could get that at Symmetry, if that's what they're looking for, if they're willing to do this X amount of work. If I do that 10 times a week, it's going to do a couple of things to me. It's going to make me believe more in what we do. It's an inherent, it's like your son plays baseball, right? How good is he if he has one pitch to hit versus 100?
Oh yeah, it's way better. He's way better at 100 pitches, right?
Right, but people don't apply that to this, right? And it's like, if I've got 10 plus interviews a week, I will find another person or two a week to do business with me. Guess what? That makes me excited because I'm like, I like this Brian Howe guy. He's coming aboard. He's in my business. I'm smiling. That dude's going to be sharp, right?
Yep.
He's going to be good. He fired me up. He's talking about what he's going to do here. Now I go run my appointments. Am I running an appointment with a better attitude and more genuine care about the people because I'm not feeling so broke, miserable, or anything like that? And I'm not so much pressure on that appointment. You know what I mean? Anything,
Yeah.
Joe, or
Yeah,
Joe,
you know, I've just seen it over the years in myself and all our agents. Whenever I see, and Danny Young said it a couple weeks ago, right? He said, you want to keep an agent here and you want to keep them motivated and pumped, and with the vision is help them find somebody, right? Because when you find somebody, that vision of yours is shared with somebody else. And now you got an accountability partner, right? Or you feel responsible, right? You talk about a why, right? You feel responsible as a leader for your team, right? Like my why has changed dramatically over the past couple of years, because it went from when I saw Symmetry for the very first time, Chris, my vision was always, I want to build a business, right? Like I never came in here saying I wanted to top produce. I wanted to know what it felt to be a top producer, right? So I went out and kicked some butt and did that, right? But last year, right, I sat down and I told you, Chris, right, we had a conversation. I want to know what it feels to be a top builder, right? So we went out and we made it a challenge for our entire organization to become top builders, right? What that did, Chris, was gave me way more responsibility and gave me way more, it's changed everything. Dedication, right? Like what's my why? I'm here to help more agents find the same thing that we keep getting for more and more agents, right? Like a responsibility of hey, how do I become a really good producer? Go find somebody. When you find somebody to do this with you, you instantly get all the habits of a top producer, because you want to make sure you're booking 15 plus appointments so that they can see you do that. You're instantly starting to speak with 5 or 10 plus people a week because you want them to do the same thing, right? Your role and purpose is really good because you actually mean, care, and you want to help the family so that you can show your agents how to help more families, right? Like it's just changed everything, right? And the why just keeps getting bigger, right? Like me and Brian had a conversation last week, right? And it's like, how can we help Brian get bigger and faster, right? Like, because his why pumps me up, right? Like he wants to be able to get out of the field, right? One day he wants to have a huge organization and take care of his family. His family, which is his why, becomes my why, right? It ain't just my family anymore. There's a ton of families we got to go out there and be successful at this, because we have a lot of families to take care of in our organization, right? And Choose to Win, it taught us to say, right, at least it was our commitment to our organization, right, was all the families we go out and help, they're our friends, and all the agents in our agency are our family. And I want to take care of all our family, right? And that has changed our why. And my brother last year asked me in the middle of the year, Chris, he's like, how do you stay so energized and motivated? I'm like, I got a lot of responsibility, but every agent I talk to that we hire gets me excited, right? And that why just can't, I mean, it's like the Care Bears, right? They pump you with the heart, and you just get filled with lots of love, Brian. You got to help everybody, and we get excited because there's so many different whys, right? We have a young single person. Hey, I want to be able to do this, take care of my mom or this, right? Then you have a family person with 3-4 kids, and hey, I want to make sure this doesn't ever happen to our family. Your why starts getting filled, right? If you don't have a why, go out and find one. But the fastest way to find one is go hire somebody.
Yeah, and I think it changes. So your care for humanity, right, changes not only when you're dealing with people and making sales, right, and helping families get protected, right, because you put yourself in their shoes. If something happens, right, they're going to be in a really bad situation, or they're going to have to get a GoFundMe, right, that's going to give them $15,000, right, which is not going to get them anywhere. And so your humanity carries over to your clients, to the people that you're sitting with, because you care. But as a builder, right, it also carries over to your agents. If you're feeling the same way, I care about the agents that are on my team. I want them to be successful, right? I want them to perform well, not for me, but for them, because this business will change their life, right? Spiritually, financially, right? It just will. And so when you start to build and do that thing, Joe's right. Your mindset, your heartbeat, the way that you approach people changes completely, right? Again, Zig Ziglar, right? You help enough other people get what they want or need in life, you'll have everything, right? When you make life about others, right? Whether those are the families we're helping or the agents that we're helping, right? And Joe's true to that, right? Joe 100% would give his shirt off his back, right, to help you be successful at the end of the day. He would, and he'd bleed out for you, right? And so we want those same things for our agents, like, hey, not for me, right? For you, right? And so, yeah, your mindset has to be different.
And so the challenge for us all is to take this information and disseminate it and realize this: literally, if you want to become better at sales, role and purpose and why in a home, you start it with doing 10+ interviews a week, because there will get you right to be more genuine in the home, and everything will take care of itself. Because it's almost like people want to think it's opposite, but it's actually not. Because if, for example, if you have an Elijah Carujo on your team and the guy writes 5,000 a week, he's getting paid $2,000, and because you helped him, you're probably making $300 that week. So let's just say this is you, the new agent, but because you did 10 interviews a week, you found Elijah. Smart job, right? Elijah's killing it. You're making $300 a week in overrides. Well, those overrides, do you think, Joe and Brian, if you're making your lead bill a week in overrides, can you be a little more bolder, caring, and genuine, because you're not sweating each appointment like it's the last appointment in the world? You can actually be there for them, not for you. There's a dynamic that changes, and you can ask real questions that leads to real yeses or nos and get down to the heart of it. That's something that definitely happened for me. I became a better producer as I built more. Never saw myself just as a producer. I always wanted to build a business here because I wanted to leave a legacy. And I'm just saying, even if you're saying, well, I don't want to build a business, then I'm saying still do 10+ interviews a week, because the byproduct of doing that will make you awesome at doing sales. If that's your goal, then we're telling you start with 10+ interviews a week at the same time as you're doing your other, and you're going to be amazed at how that will uplift your spirits. You'll be more genuine people. And yeah, it's just something. I know, Joe, we're probably running up against the clock. You probably had more stuff on there, but any nugget, we'll probably continue this series next week because I think it's such value to people. But any comments that you wanted to add on just recruiting, or any how-tos on that, Joe?
I just love what you just said right there and added, right? The recruiting and the overrides allowed me to go into a home, Chris, and ask really hard questions, right? I was able to say, hey, how do you want me to help you in this, right? How do you expect this coverage to take care of your family, right? And I wasn't afraid to say, hey, well, I need the full mortgage payoff and it's X amount of dollars or whatever it may be, right? It allowed me to go into an appointment with a very clear mind to just be the best version of myself for that family, because I wasn't stressed out about, right, I need this sale, this has to happen right now. It just allowed me to be the best version of my production side, right? How can I help you? I'm here to listen, right? And and that's a big one, right? It allowed me to listen to the family. And I can't tell you how many times when I went into a home already with quotes, how they would change because I listened to the family. And more than less, the changes that I made on the quotes went up, right? So it helped me more, and it helped protect that family more because I was just there to listen and help them through that next step.
Beautifully said. I love what he said there, Hal. He said it allowed him to listen, right? Because I promise you, I've been in appointments before when I was first starting my career and I wasn't very good at helping people. I wasn't listening. I really didn't put my ears on. I was thinking about, man, you got to pay for this, you got to do that. Your gas, you're 3.5 hours from home. So if they tell you no, you're broke today, you know what I mean? Like, this is all going through my head. And guess what? I didn't even listen to what they said or really what was important to them. And me building a team allowed me to be better at those things because I was taking pressure off myself, right? And it just allowed me to really listen, because if you really listen, people are telling you exactly what you need to hear to be able to help them.
Here's a little note that I knew I had changed, right? So a lot of y'all are gonna laugh. When I prepped for my appointment and I had the quotes ready, I already knew what my commission was gonna be, because I was not thinking of the family I was gonna go sit with. I was thinking of my wallet. So if you're working up quotes and you already know what you're gonna get commissioned off that quote, you're not going in with the right mindset.
Yeah.
Right. Versus I stopped because my importance changed, right? It was, I'm recruiting, I have overrides coming. I'm going to be the best version of myself for this family. It doesn't matter what I'm going to show them. I'm just there to help them. And I made way more in commissions doing it that way versus counting my dollars prepping for an appointment, Chris.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're going to leave you this, the how-to, real quick, and we'll get into more of it next week. So I know, Joe, you probably had some stuff prepped. I love that we got into this because I promise you it's a different way of thinking for a lot of you, and I get it. Just be open to it. It's our challenge. But here's a couple of tips. So if you want to check warm market, which is the fastest way to go find people, do 10 plus interviews in your warm market this week. Here's how you do it. Just call people up, ask them a simple question, right? Joe or Brian, you can give me any nuggets here that you guys have on this, but just simply ask them, say Brian's my old college buddy. I just call him up, see what he's doing, talk to him like normal, like we always do. And say, hey man, one of the reasons I'm giving you a call today, just want to check with you. We're getting ready to do some hiring. I hired on with a company called Symmetry Financial Group. We're getting ready to do some hiring over in your area, full and part-time positions. Do you know of anybody sharp looking for a position over there? Or are you in the market? Right. And see what they say. That's a check interest call. All that is. It's not me saying, hey, Hal, you need to do this. Hey, Hal, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't say any of that. Just check interest call. And then from that, see what interest I get. And then I set up my interviews. We send them a video. We set them up for a 15-minute thing, but set a specific time. Don't say, well, I'll call you on Tuesday. All right. What time works best for you on Tuesday? Are you available at, 9 a.m. or 12? What time would work best? Just need you to watch this video beforehand so you know a little bit about it. That's warm market, right? Any comments on warm market for you two real quick?
I love it.
Yeah, I just had one this weekend. We were in LA, watching baseball, and she started asking me what I was, doing since we moved, and I said, hey, this is what I'm doing, and we had dinner with them, and I just said, hey, listen, I just kind of feel like you're a little interested. She goes, actually, I am, and so I sent her an email with videos and all that off my website, right? It's just about talking to people about what you're doing and checking their interests. It's actually not that hard. If you believe in it and you're doing it right, I wouldn't want other people to do it with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
my favorite thing
Shelley,
was what Troy hit on last time when we had him on the call was it's not even about your warm market, right? It's the warm market that your warm market knows, right? Because we think, oh, well, this person, you're probably right. Maybe they're not interested, right? But guess what? If you have a really sharp warm market, right, that has a really good job and do really well, they probably have friends that do really well and are looking for something, and that would be a great candidate for this. So I love the question. My favorite one for warm market, Chris, was always like, hey, I'm working with Symmetry. Do you know anyone that's interested? Do you know anyone? And how many times they themselves raised their hand was amazing, but how many they got us was amazing, right? And then they continue that funnel. When you build that funnel, right, of people like, oh, hey, you know what, my friend Joe, they're hiring, right? So anytime they hear it, they refer them over to you. So that was really huge in our organization last year. I mean, 30% of the people we hired out of 278 probably came from that, Chris. It was crazy.
yeah. And a lot of you, you know, your biggest thing, if you're brand new, you're saying to yourself, well, that's good, but they're already personally producing, so that's why they're doing it. Remember, we're teaching you to do that first. It'll make you better at the other. And you'll say, well, I don't have time to hire all these people if I can't get it going personal production. Well, the key is you don't even have to train them. Just plug them into the same trainings you're attending. You can actually get trained at the same time. It's phenomenal. We already have a system. If you already have a why, we have a system without us even speaking to you right now that you could go out and have thousands of hours of videos and audios on how to do this business. They're already recorded. You know what I mean? They're already recorded. And then there's experts at the companies that are paid to answer your questions if you have a question about the product, right? And you can watch live. There's 6 to 8 hours a week training live of teaching your people how to book appointments, which is probably the most important key factor, right? All that already exists. Cold market, go through that. You got LinkedIn, Craigslist, ZipRecruiter. If I'm missing anything, Hal or Joe, you let me know. You can do any of those. All those are great, right? But I'm just teaching you, go out and start doing that. Facebook ads. I know Mark's great at Facebook ads. You can watch us do interviews. I post about 2 to 4 hours a week of live interviews that I do. And guess what? I do interviews. That's all I do. Like, you know what I mean? I sit there and I do interviews because I know, because Brian, you said it. Brian said it a few minutes. Help enough get people in your life get what they want. You'll have everything in life you want. So all I'm looking to do is help more people get to where we're at. Does that make sense? That's why I'm doing interviews, because I believe in it so much that I'm like, more people need this. I needed this. I was 6.5 years at a crosstalk with a college degree. I started out making $7 an hour. I needed this. This was something that fulfilled a need in my life. And I want to share it with as many people as possible each and every week. And I just challenge us all to think differently about that, because I believe if we do, we're going to change this industry, and we're by a byproduct of that, we're going to change a lot of lives. So, Brian, Joe, anything before we leave?
I just
Just
love
one
you.
last thing for me. Yeah. Pour into other people genuinely, right? Pour into other people genuinely, and your cup will be full. Like, just honestly, genuinely do it. Not with, hidden motives or, right? I mean, if it's hidden motives, just pour into other people, whether that's your clients or the people in your life, pour into them. Your cup will be full for sure. 100%. Don't complain.
And then you just hit system, right? Like, guys and gals, right? Everyone, we love all of you and want y'all to succeed, right? Just like a producer to succeed has to hit their 15 plus appointments, right? To make this work. If you want to last and stay in the insurance business, not just in Symmetry, like, that's just the insurance business is what I've learned, right? Y'all want to make it here. There's a system. That means you have to do both parts of it. It's produce and build, right? 15 plus appointments to sit with, 10 plus interviews for the week. That's the system, right? The challenge for all of y'all, if you're not getting either one of those, get there, because realize you're not hitting the quota for yourself.
I love it. Everybody have a great week. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate everybody out there.
Thank you, Chris.
Have
Thank
a
you, guys.
fantastic week,
Thanks.
guys. Be good.